Hi, my name's Todd Berzer with Kevolve Product Management. This is Product Management 101 and our lecture on launch or new product introduction. Throughout this course, we've been looking at the work of product management across 4 different areas. So the first is market intelligence. So market, customer, and competitive analysis. The second area is strategy and strategy development for your product group. And in these last few lectures, we've been looking at new product development. We started with road mapping. We went to the actual development of new products or services, and in this lecture, we're going to talk about launch. So releasing your product, launching it, introducing it out to the market. So in this lecture, what we want to do is we're going to talk about the importance of a solid launch. We want to talk about setting your launch priorities, developing your launch plans, and we'll wrap it up with an example. We've been talking about the process of new product development, starting off with market intelligence, strategy, technology assessment that your research and development teams will pull together, so technology monitoring, forecasting, understanding your own position, innovation ideas, which your team would pick up from a number of sources, all of this leading to road mapping. And you'll remember that road maps are time-based charts of the evolution of your product or service. And then we moved to the actual new product development. We talked about spiral development as an approach to that. And now we're going to move on to launch. And launch you can think about let's talk about the importance of an impactful launch. So if you could think about your sales over time with just a product that you introduce with some kind of normal level of launch, just kind of covering the bases, what you would see is the sales that slowly ramp up as customers, as your sales channels, as your sales representatives become aware of this, as they let their customers know. You see a slow ramp up. But then as most of your customers understand the benefits of your new product or service, as you get the awareness up, as you raise the awareness, what you're going to see is a faster ramp up on your sales. And then at some point, you're going to hit a steady state. You're going to hit, kind of a plateau on the amount of sales that you're getting in this product over time. That's a normal, kind of if you do a normal introduction. If you have a very successful, impactful introduction, what you can do is you can actually move that curve to the left. You're actually going to make customers aware, interested, and have a preference for your products at a much earlier date. And because you're doing that, because you're making such more of a market impact, you can raise the run rate of that product over time compared to what it would have been otherwise. So this is the importance of an impactful launch. And as a product manager, you're organizing this launch, you're working with your extended teams to make this happen. And you can chart, in a sense, your impact on your sales, your market share, your profitability through this impactful launch. Let's talk about launch priority. This is one of the best practices of companies that really do this well. They set a priority on how much resources and attention you want to put on a particular launch. So let's start off with launch priority number 3. In this case, this might be a maintenance launch. You might be doing bug fixes. You might be doing quality enhancements, cost reductions. And in this case, you want to let your sales teams know. You want to let your major accounts know. But it might end there. You might let your support teams know. But you're not putting a huge amount of emphasis, a huge amount of company resources on something like a maintenance launch. And then you might have a supporting launch. So you might be doing a replacement for a product. You might be adding some new features, some line extensions. So in this case, you want to put a little more attention on the launch, and maybe you want to link up to a bigger launch at the same time as a higher priority launch that your company is coming out with, so that you can kind of ride along on the tailwinds. And then there'll be launches, and maybe you're working on one right now, which is a major strategic launch. And in this case, you want to plan well in advance, maybe 6 months in advance, 12 months in advance, to make sure that you are launching this at the absolute best way you can do it, that you're raising awareness and interest in the product as fast as you can. This is a launch with a high company focus and a high company investment. So the best practice among the best companies that do this is to go ahead and prioritize your launch early on so that you know what priority to put and how much energy and emphasis to put on your launch work. If you remember in our last lecture with new product development and spiral development and working through the stage gates process, in the business case phase, you would have developed a business case that we talked about, an outline that looks like this. And that includes launch plans, number 4. So at that point, during the business case phase, you would be doing the first pass of launch plans. As I mentioned, it's important to start early on this stuff. But I think what you're going to do is, what you need to do to really develop out this launch is that you want to add detail and robustness to this section 4 as you move through the development phase. And it should look something like this. So your outline for your launch plan, as you develop your plans, it should look something along this line. So you want to give your top level approach. What's your launch priority? What regions are you introducing? Are you introducing in April in Europe, in November in Asia Pacific? What are your prioritized market segments? Are you going after all the target segments that you have identified for this particular product, or just one at the beginning? And what's your introduction timing? Then we move into pricing. So you need to provide pricing for the product, as well as provide guidance to your sales channels, your sales teams, in terms of discounting, if this is relevant for your product or service, discounting in terms of price off, in a sense. And then channels, you need to outline your channel approach. So what are your distribution plans for selling your product out into the market? What are your plans for physically distributing the product, if that's relevant for you? And then messaging, you would have developed the value proposition as part of the business case, as part of the, when you develop your business case, you would have developed the value proposition. The value proposition has in turn been used. You've been using that to guide your research and development teams. But that's more of an internal message. You need to develop your external messaging. So positioning and message refinement comes out in this launch plan. And then awareness, that's a big element of launching a new product into the market. You want to build awareness, preference. You know, it might be through launch events, social media, trade shows, demos, advertisements, marketing communication, work with the press, work with key opinion leaders. Maybe it's all of the above. Sales, you might come out of the chute with sales promotions. You may want to be working with your sales teams if you've got specific sales initiatives to go after maybe key competitive accounts. You'll also be developing sales tools. All right, and then training. There's a number of people that have to be trained during a new product introduction. It might be your sales channels, your sales representatives. They might be your support teams. So training is another critical element. Budget, specify your budget needs throughout all this. And then metrics. How are you going to track your success and continue to learn in this process so that you're better at it the next round? That's a launch plan. That's what a launch plan can look like, and this will help guide, this kind of thinking can help structure and guide your planning as you move through the launch process. I'm going to give an example now. Remember earlier we talked about office chairs, we talked about Steelcase, and how they did some great work, research worldwide to understand customer needs, how people are sitting. Remember, if you're a product manager for an office chair, you need to, your customer, the need that need to know is how people sit. And they came up with these 9 different positions, largely changing from prior, our grandparents' generation because of technology. So they did some great work to guide their new product development, but I think in turn, they did some great work to introduce their product. And they used that research that helped guide product development. They used that research as kind of the hook to get some interest and attention out in the market. And I think they had a real coup. They worked with David Pogue in the New York Times, a tech writer for the New York Times. He went ahead and wrote about this and put a video out on the New York Times website. And I think in the process, Steelcase got some attention that a normal office chair company would not get from an introduction. So I think the product managers at Steelcase did a great job on this one. So kudos to them. A good example of a new product launch that had some impact. All right, let's review the concepts. So we talked about how impactful launches drive earlier and higher sales. We talked about setting launch priorities and doing that as a best practice, and that can help focus your company's energy and attention. And then we talked about the kind of thorough launch plans, that step-by-step that we looked through. They should be an integral extension of your new product business case. All right, so that's launch, new product introductions and launch. Next up, we're going to do a course wrap-up, and I will talk to you then.